What's up everyone, Thralls here once again. I am Necrotic Nick, and I have an album review for you. So today I am going to go over the first release in 14 years from Green Carnation, Leaves of Yesteryear. This album comes out on the 8th of May on Season Mist Records, and again, it is their first album in 14 years. Now the only lone remaining member is Short, I don't know how to pronounce his name, but he's their longtime guitarist and has also played in bands like Blood Red Throne, Emperor, and Carpathian Forest. So he's definitely been around. Now, this band started off as more of a death metal band and then slowly shifted off to gothic, progressive, almost doom metal later on. And that's pretty much where they are right now, pretty much picking up where they left off. The lead-off track and first single and title track, Leaves of Yesteryear, pretty much encompasses all that. Lots of lush, proggy keys, really nice riff-driven sections, and lots of atmosphere. There are sections in here where the drums and all the heaviness will drop out and have a lot of ambience, and there's little spoken word excerpts or possibly excerpts from movies and such, and it really just kind of builds the atmosphere. And when the vocals come in, they really kind of have like a Pink Floyd-like quality to them, or maybe even like Killing Joke when Jazz is singing and not screaming. Now when all the parts come together and the heavy guitars come in and all the vocals, this pretty much has a sound very similar to, like, I'd say Paradise Lost, but mix that with King Crimson and Dark Tranquility. There are elements of melodic death that pop up on here. You get some really good tremolo chugging that's very similar to Amon Amarth in sections, especially the second track, The Sentinel, and the longest song, My Dark Reflections of Life and Death, which clocks over 15 minutes. Now this is only a 5-track album, but believe me, this is not an EP. This is a 44-minute album, or almost 45 minutes. So there is a lot of content on here. 2 songs in here cracking the 10-minute mark. Now the title track is probably my favorite track on here. It has what I think is the best chorus on the entire album. It is very memorable. I love how it's constructed, and it really conveys a really good, like, sullen mood to it. It's kind of depressive. It kind of falls in that catatonia category, with the lyrical themes being about, you know, depression, being forlorn, but also sort of like the human condition and such. And it really works with the music because the music really conveys the mood very well. Hounds is a track that really does that well too. It's a little bit more heavy. It has more of kind of a doom metal riff, actually a fiercely Black Sabbath riff. And we'll definitely get to Black Sabbath in a bit, because that's touched on as well. Again, the song, very riff-driven, huge chorus, lots of lush vocal harmonies that really bring it together. It kind of gives it this really interesting, epic, but melancholy feel, and I really like that. It's almost more along the lines of like prog meets epic doom. Now the longest track that I brought up, My Dark Reflections of Life and Death, is good, but I think it could have benefited from some editing. It starts off really well, really builds into a cool tribal rhythm, and lyrically it really gets into like a story, I think. And I really like the narrative of it, you want to follow it, but it's kind of missing all the big dynamic moments you really want out of a giant 15-minute epic. Sometimes it kind of lulls in spots. And the contrast in there where it's trying to be giant and epic versus melancholy and sorrowful, sometimes it can be a little jarring. And this is where some of the vocals get maybe a little too dramatic, maybe theatrical. There are parts in here where the singer's more baritone register actually reminds me a lot of Matt Barlow from Iced Earth. As much as I like that singer in his own element, I think that works better. In this, it kind of takes away from the whole melancholy feel of the story. It just feels like it's trying to be an epic, sorrowful, doomy story, and you know, it just didn't really work here. Towards the end of the song, there is a clean break that really goes on for a long measure, and just when you think it's building up, because you hear the drums slowly start coming in and doing a nice little rhythmic pattern, then it kind of just goes into another clean break, which only hangs out for a little bit, but at the same time, it didn't feel like it should be building up to just another clean section. It should be building up to something bigger and epic. Now, I like the way the song closed, and this song is full of solid hooks, but for a 15-minute song that makes up the largest chunk of single listening on this album, there's just not enough huge moments that you would expect out of a big song like that. Now, the nice little surprise at the end was a cover of Black Sabbath's Solitude. This is one of my favorite little moody pieces off of Master Reality. It's very soft, very sullen, and again about depression and breakups and such. And I really love the original song, and they really capture the feel of that song very well on here. Vocally, very similar to Ozzy too, I'd have to say. I like how they use the layered keys in there and clean guitar tones. It really does sound like the original, except just with better production. Or rather, different production, because I love the production of those old Sabbath albums. Now, since there's only 5 tracks on here, I might as well go into each one, and Sentinel's the only one I really haven't touched on too much. That one's a little bit different. It's a little bit more up-tempo, a little bit more of a rocker, and I think the keys take some different turns in there. It actually kind of takes more of a Dream Theater-like turn. You hear stuff that's more associated with Jordan Rudess, a little more sci-fi, a little more showy. And I think this song's alright. It kind of misses the mark on the chorus, but it does deliver some nice big riffs on it. And there is a really cool, almost kind of groove metal breakdown that actually turns into a little bit of melodic death on here. I think the bridge kind of gets cut off a little bit too short in favor of going back to the chorus, which, again, the chorus is okay, it's just not as huge, especially since this one follows my favorite track, which is the opening track. But overall, this was a really good album. And Green Carnation isn't a band I actually own anything by. It's one of those bands that I'd heard of, and I intended on going out and getting it, and then I heard of like 5 other bands, and somehow they kind of slid under the radar a little bit. And them coming out with a new album after 14 years definitely got my attention, and I'm definitely going to go out and see if I can find some Green Carnation now. So overall, I'm going to give this 3.5 stars. This is a really good release, some really strong songwriting on here, and I like the mood building and the songwriting on here. That one particularly long song could have been edited down a little bit, or maybe just had some more giant moments in it. But overall, I love the feel of it. I think the vocals are excellent. The guitar work is very appropriately moody and sullen. The keys are very lush. And it really does embody prog and doom metal and little bits of melodic death metal as well. So if you're into any of that sort of thing, definitely check this album out. It's a really good listen. So, if you like the review, give it a thumbs up. And if you are new to the channel, subscribe, because we do shit like this all the time. Catch you guys later.